Good evening and welcome to Across the Pitch. We're the soccer show for people who think the Tractor Boys are a country and western band.
Hey, you know what? If they're not, they should be.
Yeah, we should start one up. Hey, I'm pretty good with percussion.
Isn't there a country western singer from Australia?
Yeah, Keith Urban.
Yeah,
only one of the biggest ones out there. Yeah.
There's a lot of country out there, so it makes sense.
It does actually. A little town from where I'm from. It's about an hour down the road. It's the country music capital of Australia. Hello, Tamworth, you shithole.
Country music capital of Australia.
Yeah.
That's probably the best thing I've ever heard.
It's true. They have a festival there every year across the Australia Day long weekend, which is the 26th of January, and every now and then they get flooded out, and I sort of think that's some sort of
that begs the question now, what's the country music capital of England?
Wherever Nigel Travis is from.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sure
Well, maybe the country music capital of England would have to be Ipswich, because that's where the Tractor Boys are actually from.
Right.
And now the origination of the Tractor Boys nickname is that the Ipswich Town FC, when they made it to the Premier League for the first time, their nickname is the Blues. And of course, Chelsea is already the Blues. So given the agricultural history of Ipswich, they became known as the Tractor Boys.
I learned something today. I never realised why they were called the Tractor Boys, because they've got this prancing pony on their crest, haven't they?
I guess the Ipswich was a big farming area, so they became known as the Tractor Boys. And they have a massive matchup coming up this weekend against Sunderland.
Yes.
This is a League One matchup between two clubs who have a combined stadium capacity of 79,000.
Remarkable. That is remarkable. And here they are in League One. Ipswich having a terrible, no good, horrible, bad day season last year. And Sunderland do what they do. It's a bit interesting seeing both these teams down there in League One.
Really is, and it's really going to be a cracker of a match, and that one's going to be at Ipswich on Saturday. I actually just put out an article about that on acrossthepitch.com/blog. You can head over there and read about the massive League One matchup this week.
It's funny you say that, because we have been watching the forums, and of course we've been watching English football in particular, because the dog days of summer are finally over. Gone are the hours and days staring at a blank TV screen, wondering when this unrelenting heat will subside. Probably won't in Phoenix for a while, I'm just going to say. Gone are the heady days of picnics and frolicking. Gone is the pining. The waiting for the days when 22 gladiators battle it out for supremacy, for bragging rights, by kicking a plastic composite ball around a silky smooth turf arena. No, those days are over. The return to the cauldron, the Colosseum, is imminent, where kinsfolk roar with approval while wishing their foes a miserable trip back to whichever similar hovel they ventured from. That time is now. It's time to wake up, ladies and gentlemen, from that uncomfortable, sweaty summer slumber. Swat the flies away from your face and rejoice, because football is back!
Or if you live over here in the States, soccer is back.
And haven't we been having fun with that, lads?
Yeah. All that soccer talk.
Yeah, no, let's not talk about soccer. Football, man. Football, not soccer.
Well, this is the first time during Season 2 that all three of us are here at the same time. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with my co-hosts.
Did you want to go first, Matt?
Yeah, I'll go first. Sure, why not?
Yeah,
Matt Robards.
That's Mr. Wizard over there, and this is Arran Ayres.
Brother from Down Under.
Thanks, mate.
And,
Down Under. Down Under, just to repeat that.
Down Under.
Right? Okay. That was a bad.
And thank you all for joining us here on Across the Pitch. And this, like Aaron said in his fabulous opening, is the first week that we get to talk about some actual English football in over 2 months, and a cracker of a weekend it was. Now, some of the games that I really like to keep my eye on are ones that pit a team that was relegated from a higher division against a team that was promoted from a lower division. And one of the games that happened Saturday that fit that bill was Fulham against Barnsley.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Fulham, of course, was relegated from the Premier League last year, while Barnsley finished second in League One and were promoted. And guess what? Barnsley won that one.
Isn't that great? Don't you love that? Oh dear, Fulham are pretty much in the same spot starting this season as where they ended up last season. So they're doing great, aren't they? Eh?
Yeah, it's I mean, it can't be that surprising, right? They've lost a lot of players, because they brought a bunch of guys in on loan, and of course they're starting, on the back foot. They were starting on a low note, whereas Barnsley was coming off that promotion high. They probably brought in some new players, and they seem to have things clicking where this Fulham team is just struggling, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better.
No, I don't see that happening. Fulham are going to struggle, and you know what? It's so early in the season. It's very hard to predict what's going to happen here. Fulham, however, as I said last season, they could be one of those clubs that end up being like a Sunderland or an Ipswich this year, where they struggle for a number of years before they bounce back up. Barnsley, on the other hand, they are doing exactly the same thing as what a number of teams do when they're promoted. So think of Wolves last year, although Wolves were somewhat a different outfit because they did investigate themselves in the Premier League. Someone unfancied, like, let's say, Hull from 3 or 4 years ago, where they were sitting in third place come the fifth round of the competition in the Premier League, and that was unheard of. So you quite often see this in these games, in the early parts of the season anyway, where these promoted teams, they ride on that high. The demoted teams kind of suck.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, no, Barnsley, they're a team that in their history, they've only ever spent one season in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see if they're a team that they can fight their way back up, because there's certainly some big names up there. You have Leeds United, who, of course, they're going to be tough as always. They won the first week. And then what about our friends over at Derby County? Who are bringing in Wayne Rooney as the player coach coming up in January. What do you guys think about that news?
Man, I'm going to throw this to you because that took me by complete surprise. Did not see that coming at all.
I think it is surprising, but I think it's a brilliant move by Derby County. I mean, Rooney is going to be 34 this year. He's still playing at a high level. I mean, he did not come to the MLS to just sit back, collect that big paycheck, and, ride off into the sunset. I mean, he turned that team around. At times when he came in last year, he's scored crazy goals. You watch the MLS All-Star skills tournament, and he was just banging in some absolute stunning volleys. And so I think this is a great move from Derby. It gets you a player who, again, is 34, still relatively young, playing at a championship level, I think. And then you're kind of grooming him for maybe that a coaching position. He gets to work on that, and you get a player who is going to provide you a lot of attacking power, big name. I think it's a great move for them, especially in January, right after that midway point in the season. So if they need that little bounce or they need that push, to make it into the playoffs or even, to make an automatic promotion spot, I think he could really help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, I got a question for you, Matt. Would that have happened if Frank Lampard had stayed at Derby County?
You know what? I don't know. Probably not, I would say, because he had his coaching staff pretty much in place. So I think, you bringing in a new manager and a new managing team for this year. And this might've been something that was, in the background, they had been talking about since this summer. But I'd say my gut is probably not.
I had heard that Lampard was actually involved in talking Rooney into coming to Derby.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
Okay. It's a statement of intent by Derby, really, isn't it? Because bringing Frank Lampard across was a bit of a coup last year, and he certainly solidified that team. And they did make a deep push into the playoff places there. Wayne Rooney coming across, as you say, still in a very, very good form. Certainly he can certainly play against these guys in the championship. That is a statement of intent by Derby that they want to go up. Can you explain how that player-coach situation works for us?
Well,
no. You don't have to, because that's the role he's going into, isn't it?
Well, I think it just depends on what their, what the perception is. My guess is that he's going to be more like a second or third assistant, and probably help coach the team, during training, talk to the younger players. I would imagine he's going to be very much like John Terry was at Aston Villa a couple seasons ago. Even though John Terry didn't have that title, I couldn't imagine him not kind of coaching, up people, helping in training, doing stuff like that.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be more something, along those lines, where he's going to be primarily a player first, but he's there to work on his coaching, kind of learn, understand how it works, maybe even work on his coaching badges and do a little help kind of behind the scenes during training.
Right. Phil, you probably need to jump in here, mate, because there is a difference between the definition of a coach in the UK and a coach in America, isn't there? Your coach in the UK is not your top guy.
Well, yes, and I also, just to kind of add to this conversation, I also think that one of the interesting aspects of this is that it's going to be a good A-B split test for us for our discussion of the level of play between the MLS and the Championship, because we now have a sample size of what Rooney's done in the MLS. Now we get to see him go over to the Championship. Is he going to be more successful? Is he going to be less successful? And I think that's going to be an interesting A-B split test. And to kind of circle back and answer your question, in the United States, a head coach in most sports, certainly in American football or in basketball, is the top guy. In English football, much like in American baseball, your top guy is referred to as a manager, where your coaches in English football would be called your assistant coaches.
Right. So they're looking more at form rather than actually managing the comings and goings of the players and the overall team tactics. Right. Well, there you go.
Now there was another game that we watched. This was actually the very first match of the EFL season. It happened last Friday, early afternoon our time. That was our team of the month from last January. Luton Town coming up a level to take on Middlesbrough. How did they do in that one?
I tell you what, that was a cracker of a match. And if the rest of the season lives up to the standard of this game, we are going to have so much fun. It ended up 3-3. Middlesbrough went ahead. Luton Town scored 2. Middlesbrough got one back, and I tell you, it was just end-to-end stuff. It was great football. They had a bunch of shots on target, and, it was just quality football. Luton Town looked like one of those teams, like Barnsley, where they were promoted and they were playing just for the love of the game. And Middlesbrough, established and former Premier League side as well, were like, we got these jokers, and all of a sudden they were 2-1 down, didn't know what to do. They were reeling. It became a real great battle. I
was great.
Enjoyed this game.
What's cool too is Middlesbrough was not a lower table team last year. They finished at 7th on 73 points, and so you have a promoted team, especially like Luton, who we covered a lot last year. They were a team of the month 1 month, and they got the new stadium thing going on. I mean, they came to play, and I think they showed everyone that you can't go into a match against them thinking, they're a promoted side, we'll be able to handle them, or they don't have the players that we have, and they'll probably upset a couple teams this year.
I believe they will. They're not going back down, Luton. They would have to have a terrible run of form from this point onwards for that, because they seemed like they were full of attacking intent. They weren't scared of Middlesbrough. They were taking it to them. It was great to watch.
Well, I'm going to go even further than that, because Luton Town, they're not your everyday average promoted team. First and foremost, they're a team that's had 2 promotions in a row. Like
Yes.
Matt mentioned, they've got that new stadium, and they have an ownership group. As we read in that FC Business article, their ownership group is Premier League or bust. Not only are they not going back down, not only are they going to surprise some people this year, I will put down some quid that they're going to make the playoffs this year.
That's a big that's a big shout right there.
Yeah. That is a big call. I wouldn't put it past them. As you said, like 2 promotions in two seasons. Oh, gee, it's a big call, mate.
they looked ready to brawl opening day.
Yes, they did. They were there. That was great to see.
Now we have our team of the month for August, who won a poll that happened on our Facebook and Twitter, and that is the Imps of Lincoln City. Let's give a hand to the Imps for our team of the month.
Yay! Thanks, guys. Thanks for voting on that, by the way. That was a really good turnout, that poll, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And you know, our team of the month, just to kind of go back here, we had Sheffield United in December. They got promoted. We had Luton in January. They got promoted. We had Phoenix Rising in March. They're on a 12-game winning streak.
They're on a tear.
We had Tranmere Rovers. They got promoted. We had Minnesota United and Atlanta United, Atlanta United just got into the finals of the U.S. Open Cup. Unfortunately, our luck might be a little too good, because Lincoln City went out and knocked off Accrington Stanley.
Accrington Stanley?
That was a former team of the month. In fact, that was our very first team of the month, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And
so maybe our luster wears off over a season.
Well, I think there's plenty of good things to come out of Aki this year, but that was a 2-0 defeat. And it really was a game where I was impressed with what I saw out of our team of the month. I was particularly impressed with what I saw out of George Grant. This guy is a physical presence, and I think he's going to have a huge season in League One. Lincoln won League Two last year, but they really went and they've been aggressive in their off-season signings. Now with Lincoln City, this was a team that in 2016, 2017, they were in the National League. They had brothers Danny Cowley, who's the manager, and his brother Nicky took over and became the coaches of the team. They won a promotion out of the National League in 2016-17, finished 7th their first year in League Two, made the playoffs, and then last year they won promotion in League Two. This year it's their first year in League One. They're another one of their promoted sides, like you said, running that hot streak. I think they're going to surprise some people this year. And this week, they are playing one of those relegated teams when they match up with Rotherham United. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on. And I actually did put out an article on that one already with Lincoln matching up with Rotherham this week.
You can read that on acrossthepitch.com/blog. And that was written by Phil, of course, and Phil, those articles are great. Hey, I don't know whether you got this in your article here, but Lincoln City, the town itself, was home to the tallest building in the world for 238 years. It burnt down and they didn't rebuild it, but I kind of feel like that's kind of similar to what's happening to Lincoln at the moment, isn't it? They hit some heady heights. They were threatening the Premier League there for a little while. Crashed and burned, I guess you could say, and now they're rebuilding again. I wish them well. And certainly now that they've got our back, they're going to do very well.
Yeah, I mean they've really had a lot of big acquisitions. In addition to George Grant, they have Jack Payne, who joined in the offseason from Huddersfield Town. He was man of the match. Now, last season, he was actually on loan to Bradford City in League One. He had 8 goals and 5 assists for Bradford. So I mean they've gone and they've added some guys that have a League One pedigree to the roster. They've also kept around a guy that I'm really impressed with was their goalkeeper, Josh Vickers. This is a guy that's been with them on their ride up. They've also got a guy named Harry Anderson who's been with them all the way since they've been in the National League. So they have a good mix of guys that they've brought in and signed this offseason, and then their core of players that know Cowley's system. And I think that he's a manager that really seems to have a plan in place there with Lincoln City.
Phil, what was your prediction? Are you going to tell us this, or are you going to leave that for people to go and read the blog?
Oh, well, actually, for the Rotherham United game, I ended up predicting that to be a 1-1 draw. The reason I did that, one is I took a look at the weather report. There's a fairly good chance that it's going to be raining with 20-mile-an-hour wind. So it.
What, in English summer? Are you kidding?
So it's going to be one of those games where you're kind of slogging around. Rotherham, they really seem to be a team that's built to attack. They have actually 3 guys up front who are all guys that are capable of scoring 10 or 15 goals. One guy that they added to their roster is Freddie Ladapo. Ladapo was 6th in the League One in scoring last year. He came over, and like I said, they've got a strong kind of high flying front line. Meanwhile, you have Lincoln. They're the team that's come up from League Two. I think that they have more of those lunch pail type players. They also have a really strong defensive midfield. Accrington really wasn't able to get anything going offensively against them last week because what you really had is just they've got a couple of guys in their midfield. Morel was another guy in their midfield that was just really causing havoc. And I think it's just going to be one of those games where it's difficult to score. It's going to be muddy, mucky, slogging through. And I think that it's going to end up 1-1 is what I picked because I think that it's going to be 2 teams that haven't seen each other in a while, still kind of feeling each other out. One other interesting side note on this game is that these 2 teams, they actually have a really long history. This is going to be the 95th time they've played.
Wow.
They first met all the way back in 1926. However, they haven't played all that much recently. But the most interesting thing that I've found is that we're actually, what's today? We're recording this on Tuesday, August 6th. Tomorrow, August 7th, will mark the 20-year anniversary of the last time Lincoln defeated Rotherham was on August 7th, 1999. They've played 11 times since that. So Lincoln beat Rotherham last on August 7th, 1999. They played to a draw on December 4th, 1999. And since then, Rotherham has won 10 matches in a row. So Lincoln City has not beaten Rotherham this millennium.
Wow.
Goodness. So we're talking almost 20 years in 20-mile-an-hour winds. If you want to watch Rotherham versus Lincoln, you can do so Saturday, 10th of August.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fun one to watch, and you can pick that one up on iFollow. You just have to go to either the Rotherham or the Lincoln website. It'd be $7 to watch that one over here in the U.S.
Hey, Hey, who wants to lay a bet? There'll be 20 men on the field by the end of it.
Hey,
There's got to be some sort of natural 20ness about it there. I digress.
Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters. This is 2020. Let's talk a little bit more about that other big matchup that's going to happen in League One that we teased a little bit in the opener. And that's the massive Sunderland versus Ipswich Town matchup. And now this is a clash of the Titans. They're going to release the Kraken for this one.
Do you think so? I don't know. I kind of see two teams down their luck right now.
Well, I think that what you have here is you have two teams that are a lot of pressure on them. You have Sunderland, who's been in the Premier League 13 seasons. You have Ipswich, who's been 5 seasons in the Premier League. They had 17 seasons in a row in the Championship. They've been in the Championship since 2002. Last year, they were relegated. They finished dead last. They were relegated by April 13th with 4 games still left in the season. What did they do? They went out. They signed James Norwood.
Yeah.
And
we remember James Norwood from last season, of course, don't we? He was the guy that was banging home goals for Tranmere, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did 30 of them for Tranmere to be exact.
That was something remarkable, like 48% of Tranmere's goals last season.
It was just insane what he was able to do. And now here's the thing is, so Norwood last year, he had 30 goals, 29 during the regular season, 1 in the promotion playoffs for Tranmere, and that was in League 2. Even though he has jumped up a division, the odds makers still have him as the favorite to win the Golden Boot in League 1 this year.
Really? I think we were talking about that just being a matter of time, really, before an upper division team looked at James Norwood with some sort of, magnifying glass going, hey, this guy's going to be all right. He's certainly moved on last year. We said it last year that if he didn't move up a division, there's something seriously wrong with this world of football.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that, for what I understand, he had some looks from the Championship, but he really wanted to go to Ipswich because he thought he had a chance to kind of be the man there, if you will. The guy that really interests me, though, is the guy. So they played a 4-4-2 with Norwood, and the other guy that they have up front with him is actually a guy who's in his second year with Ipswich, and that's Caden Jackson.
Yes.
Now, Caden Jackson actually played for Accrington Stanley. In League 2 back in the 2017-18 season, had 15 goals and 8 assists for Aki. Went over to Ipswich last year on a £1.6 million transfer fee, which is the all-time record for Accrington. He kind of had an up-and-down season, fought through some injuries, but last year they were playing in the Championship. This year they've dropped down a tier to League 1. He's got Norwood next to him. I'm telling you, if I was going to be playing League 1 fantasy this year, I think Caden Jackson might be a sleeper pick that I think could get 12, 14 goals and 7, 8 assists.
Right on. I mean, the last time he had a decent berth was with Accrington Stanley. He scored 15 goals for them and then their way up to promotion into League 1. He's got some firepower behind him, isn't he?
He's certainly a guy that they paid £1.6 million on the transfer for. They obviously really wanted him, and I feel like maybe last year the Championship was just a little bit more than he could chew off. Drop him down a tier to League 1 this year. But then the other thing is, you put a guy like Norwood next to him, and it's like they say about, Messi and, how many opportunities does he open up for his teammate.
Here we go.
I'm just saying, at a League 1 level, a guy like James Norwood is going to open up opportunities for his teammates.
Yes. And 4-4-2. Hang on, wait. Hang on, let me just go back here. Norwood is an out-and-out striker, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So 4-4-2, he should be the one being fed the ball, not opening up opportunities.
Well, the thing is Jackson also had 8 assists in addition to his 15 goals. But I think it goes both ways. I think that if you have both center backs marking Norwood and only a left back marking Jackson, then maybe that opens up some opportunities for Jackson, for instance.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the two guys that can score goals, you'll want to shut them down quickly, and you can open up the other sharpshooter too, aren't you? So yeah. Okay, Phil. Yep, I agree with you there.
But then over on the Sunderland side, I mean, things are really kind of a mess up front for them, and not for a lack of talent, but really looking at Sunderland's roster, what I see is a lot of really good players, but not a lot of great players. And so now last year, they had Josh Maha, who already was on 15 goals in late January. They let him get away. They sent him over to Bordeaux in French League One. And then they brought in Will Grigg, and they brought him in at the end of last year. And then they brought in Mark McNulty up front. So those were their 2 starters. But they have a lot of guys who have maybe shown flashes and then struggled with injuries, or guys that they've spent a lot of money on, like Charlie Wyke, for instance, who really has fallen out of favor. Jack Ross, the manager over there at Sunderland, just doesn't think that Wyke fits the system. So it sounds like it's going to be Grigg and McNulty up front, and I think that they both have potential, but neither one of them has really shown that they can be a James Norwood, if you will.
Is Mark any relation to Phil?
I would put him related to Steve myself, because
okay.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at the Sunderland game last week, it was the same story as last season. Last season we talked about over and over again how Sunderland only lost 5 games, but they finished 5th because they had 19 draws. Well, guess what happened in week 1?
Draw.
Another 1-1 draw.
Yeah. Shockingly. And who was that against? Sorry, I don't have my stats in front of me here.
United, who finished 12th in the table. And it was at the Stadium of Light. So, I mean, they went in, home game, season opener. Oxford, who was lucky to finish 12th. I saw them play last year. They were lucky.
Yeah, they were.
They were 12th. Yes. They go into the Stadium Light, come out with a draw. And here's what the conclusion that I've come to is Sunderland is under so much pressure that they're playing not to lose. And at some point, Jack Ross is going to have to cut the ties, play that hurry-up offense brand of football, and start closing out games and getting 3 points, or they're going to be in League One forever, and they're going to get 25 draws this year.
Yes. We spoke about that at length last year. The weight of expectation in Sunderland is massive, as you would say, or massive, as you'd say, Phil. But I don't know. This season, it seems like, okay, we're established League One. What do we do? I don't know what you do. I think there needs to be a tactical and a mental change there in Sunderland for them to ever be able to get out of League One, because, it's they're down.
It's a mental thing, kind of like with Leeds in the Championship.
Yes, quite right. And Portsmouth, and probably Ipswich as well, for that matter.
I don't know. I think I think we're going to see Ipswich bounce back up, because here's the thing: is Ipswich, they were in the Championship for 17 years in a row. They have only been in the Premier League for 5 years. I mean, to me, Ipswich, they're a team, they're solidly a championship team. Last year was a blip on the map. They went out, they brought in Norwood. They brought in a guy named Luke Garbutt, a left back with a ton of experience. They brought him on a season-long loan from Everton. He actually was the one that scored the goal that they won on. One thing that was really interesting to me, though, is that they played Burton Albion in their first game. And actually, Burton outpossessed them 59-41. However, with that 59% possession, and I know you're going to love this one, Aaron, they managed one shot on target.
Oh, dear. That's not going to get them out of their problems, is it?
That's what you're saying about is that, it's not how much you possess the ball, it's what you do with it. And it really seems like Ipswich, they were a team that they were able to play the counter-attack. It's going to be interesting to see which team. The interesting thing is on the flip side, if you look at Sunderland's game, they actually outpossessed Oxford 59-41. So it was actually the complete flip of the switch. So you'll probably see Sunderland try to possess the ball more. Although on the other hand, it is going to be Ipswich at home, so maybe they'll do a little bit more possession at home. That's going to be a real interesting matchup. But to me, the most interesting thing that I want to keep an eye on, both of these teams have very strong defensive midfields. And for Sunderland in the match against Oxford, Dylan McGouch, I probably didn't say that quite properly.
Yeah, I can't help you with that one, mate.
Dylan McGouch, he was the man of the match. Where on the Ipswich side of things, Flynn Downs was the man of the match. Both of these guys are defensive midfielders. Neither one of these guys are goal scorers. And actually, Downs, he's a 20-year-old, so he's a guy who actually has come up through the Ipswich Academy. Last year, he started about half of their games. He's an up-and-coming guy, but it's really going to be interesting because I think that this game is going to be won at the midfield between these two guys who got off to a hot start. Were able to control the midfield of the matches last week. I think that's going to be the matchup to keep an eye on and see which one of these midfielders is able to better facilitate things for their team to get things through to their strikers.
Lads, I want to take the conversation down to the bottom of the League One table. Would I be fair in saying that there's probably only 2 relegation spots left?
Well, I mean, certainly you have Bury and Bolton are probably in trouble because they have issues that are bigger than football, and certainly we should probably talk about.
Just to fill our listeners in, so Bury was docked 12 points because of financial irregularities. Bolton was not only relegated from the championship, they are also docked 12 points as well from this season. So they start at negative 12 points, those two teams. It is a financial issue for those clubs. It is a lot bigger than what we can talk about here, really. Comes down to poor financial management, I guess. Any of you guys want to throw anything in there? Bury basically is not playing games. Bolton played a game, not sure they're going to play again this season. It's crazy. Quite remarkable.
Unfortunately, at negative 12 points, especially if you're Bolton, who are playing and losing, you're digging in a deep hole. Who knows how they figure out the Bury stuff, or if Bury gets back on their feet, are these going to be makeup games? When are you going to play those? Could Bury be looking at playing a game every 2.5 days for the better part of a season, just to make up some of the games? Well, and that's the thing. So, just at negative 12,
it's not going to really help them, is it? No,
It's almost the kiss of death in some ways, and for a club like Bury that got promoted last season, and now it's almost like, they're here, they're going to get, relegated again. I mean,
they could be snuffed out of the football leagues altogether.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. What are we gonna? Your hope is that someone comes in has the money, that's gonna right all these wrongs and loves these clubs, because you hate to see a team like Bolton or a club like Barry just go away and disappear. So hopefully they can figure it out.
I hope so too. I mean, Bolton was putting a trialists out there to get people on the field so they could play the game, so they wouldn't get docked more points or fines for it. I don't know. All we can do is hope that you're right, Matt, that someone like our friend Andy Holt will come along and maybe manage it with a little bit of nous, tenacity, and some financial sense.
I mean, maybe there's an ownership group in the U.S. made up of a bunch of awesome guys that like to spend money and make great football clubs that are going to looking at hopefully investing in English teams, like the Phoenix Rising management team.
There we go. Hope you were going there for that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest thing is not only are these clubs already in financial trouble, but then they're not playing games, so then they're not making any money. And then on top of that, it's hurting the opponents too.
Yeah,
yes,
I was actually talking with Andy Holt about this week, and it's really... It's devastating to a team like Accrington because now they have their opening home match. It's not going to happen. They don't have anybody coming through the gate on Saturday. They don't have anybody buying concessions on Saturday. And then if the game gets rescheduled, it'll be on a Tuesday night. They're not going to get half the people in there.
Well, that's wonderful.
I've seen people posting on Facebook that they had booked plane tickets months ago to travel and come see that game. It's just something that it has so many repercussions just beyond we're not going to get to watch this game on Saturday or this game is being rescheduled. This is something that it's going to hurt every team that's scheduled to play Barry until these things are sorted out.
I wonder what the EFL is going to do about this, because if these teams aren't able to field a team, you've got 24 games across the season that are just going missing. That's going to hurt their bottom line as well.
Right.
They have control over the schedule. Maybe they can intervene earlier. I don't know. What are they doing? Just hanging on, waiting for the judge to bring down the hammer on the club? That seems freaking ludicrous to me. That's the town. That's the heart and soul of that town. Do you know what I mean? If it winds up, God forbid, if it does, that town's now lost part of its soul. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just, it boggles me. It hurts me as a football fan to see these teams be crushed by poor management and see these towns basically crushed by this as well. I dislike this intensely. And you're right, Phil, the flow-on effects from this are immense. That's 24 games spread across, the rest of the teams in League One that aren't going to get that revenue for that day. That's going to hurt their bottom line too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a poor management structure from the EFL there. I don't understand how it got to this point.
Right, and these are teams where literally the margins they're working on are so slim that not getting the gate receipts for one game could be the difference between them making or losing money for the season.
Hopefully something gets worked out.
Yeah, I hope so too, lads. I don't have the answer. We don't have the answer. We can only hope for the best for those two teams. Guys, real quick about EFL League 2. We haven't spent much time there. Our friends Newport County had a wonderful draw. That was a bit of a game there, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a rematch of last year's semifinal in the promotion playoffs. If you remember that one, that was where the second game went all the way to penalty kicks with Newport finally advancing. This year, they met very first week of the season, week 1. Last year, they actually met week 1 of the season also.
Last year I didn't know that.
Yeah, last year they met at Mansfield. Mansfield took that one 3-0. This year it was like 364 days later. They met at Rodney Parade. Newport jumped out 2-0. Looked like that they were going to cruise to a victory. Then all of a sudden, Mansfield came back, got 2 goals, leveled it. That's where they finished up, and it really just seems like, based on the last now 4 matches that these teams have played together, that they're as evenly matched as it comes.
That was really a game that Newport lost. Really, I mean, they jumped out. Josh Labadie at the 7th minute scored one. Our mate Podge scored in the 34th minute with a penalty. Then after the half, it was all Mansfield up until Jacob Mellis got a red card. Even so, Newport was dominant, or were dominant. 53% possession, 13 shots on goal to Mansfield's 8. They lost that game, really, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, they really did. It's like when you're watching on TV, they have a stat that they like to do from time to time is points lost from a winning position. That was 2 points lost from a winning position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, it was. Nevertheless, it was a cracking match, though. I mean, it did have everything. I thought it was just brilliant to watch. Other games of note during there: demoted Plymouth got a win. Good for them. Salford City promoted, got a win. What do we think of Salford, lads?
You know what? I have no opinions on Salford. Good for them. It is what it is. I'm more excited that Leyton Orient got a win to start off their return to the football league. So that's cool to see, especially after they got demoted or relegated back down to non-football league play, and now they're back. And so hopefully they just keep going up from here. So I was happy to see that.
I do think that's going to happen, and honestly, I think this is a weird season in League Two in a sense.
It's always a weird season down there. You can't predict who's going to win or lose in this thing.
Here's what I think is weird about this year. I think you have those 2 teams, Salford and Leyton Orient. I think both of them are going to get promoted, and then everybody else is fighting for the other 2 spots.
Ooh. You might be right. I see Plymouth going up, and no idea. No idea.
Newport and Mansfield, one of those will be in there, I think.
Oh, they'll be in the mix for sure. Yeah.
I think that's the great thing about League Two, though, is any of these teams really, I mean, they're almost on an even keel. You know what I mean? Any of these teams can take off and go on a run. You could see any of them struggling, and I think that's what makes League Two real special. Is this is probably, the most fair. I don't really like that word, but
there's a lot of parity. It's
there's
very
a lot
equitable.
of parity.
Yeah.
Right. So, who knows who's going to go up and who's going to, stay down. But I would bet some of those teams we saw last year, Newport, Mansfield will be up there. Plymouth coming down this year will probably be up there. So it should make for an interesting playoff this coming year.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. We'll keep a close eye on all of the lower leagues. But lads, the main event kicks off this weekend, doesn't it?
It does.
So when I say the main event, of course, we're talking about the Premier League. It kicks off with Liverpool versus Norwich City on Friday the 8th. That is at 12 p.m. That is 12 noon here in Phoenix, and that would be, 5? Can't work that out over in the UK.
I'm sorry, Norwich.
Yeah, Norwich is going to get smashed, aren't they? Newly promoted Norwich are taking on last year's second-place getters by 1 point. They missed the league by 1 point. I think Liverpool's going to come out with intent and say, "Hey, Pep, we're still here, mate. How you doing?"
Hey, I mean, what can you say? It's Mohamed Salah. It's Temu Pukki. It's Premier League on NBC.
I think this just shows you kind of the ridiculousness of Premier League scheduling, that the first game we get is Liverpool at home to a newly promoted side. That seems just like a bit, I don't know, what team are they really wanting to push this year? Kind of conspiracy theory.
I see what's happening there. Okay, so
But
I know where you're going with this, Mr. Wizard over there. So you're saying perhaps it's a little unfair that, I don't know, the last game of the round, the Sunday night match over there is Manchester United versus Chelsea?
you know what? But that's an interesting one for me too. I think they're just capitalizing on the whole, Ole versus Lampard kind of storyline. But
Yep.
you got to feel bad for Norwich. They're right now at a 5% chance to actually get a victory in this. 10% chance at a draw. Not looking too good. Newly promoted side that you got to prepare for one of the best teams in the Premier League is rough. But hey, it all kicks off. That's what we're excited for. I know you guys probably aren't stoked about waking up super early on Saturday already for the.
I'll tell you one thing. Last season, that first Friday game was Manchester United against Leicester City, so neither one of them exactly had a banging year last year. So it might not be that's who they're promoting. But yeah, I mean, we get to wake up at 6 a.m. And that's
St. James's Park,
right?
That's Sunday, yeah.
Let's just celebrate the fact that this is probably the only week that Man City will not be at the top of the table.
Okay, explain that for me. Oh, because of the alphabetical order.
So, you got Bournemouth sitting up there number 1. Let's just enjoy it that it doesn't say Man City.
Hey, bring that back here. I think there's another fascinating game in there as well. Tottenham versus Aston Villa. I think that could be closer than a lot of people think. There's Leicester Wolves in there, but we're going to thrash Newcastle. Come on. They're rudderless. Newcastle is nothing. Benitez has gone in the off-season. Mike Astley gives no crap about the football club. Arsenal doesn't have a defence, but that doesn't matter because Newcastle doesn't have an attack. So Arsenal's going to thrash Newcastle.
Yeah, I think Arsenal's going to take that one. I mean, Newcastle, they're Newcastle.
Come on, man. Newcastle, they got Miguel Almiron.
Yeah, he hung around, did he? Okay. I'm surprised by that.
Who's even the coach now over at Newcastle? Now that
Steve Bruce.
Steve Bruce, that's right.
My money's on him to be the first manager sacked.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
I can't. Steve Bruce, he's kind of like, how can I put this delicately but impolitely? He's kind of like the guy at the bar where you're like, it's your round, mate. You go to the bar, and in the meantime, everyone runs out of the pub. And he comes back and all he's got is 5 beers to himself. He's that type of guy. He's like, oh, Jesus, we don't like you, but, if you're going to buy some beers, all right, cool.
I think old Gunner will be the first one sacked.
Ooh.
I was about to say, I think that's where I'd throw my money too.
Interesting. All right.
Even with all their spending this summer.
Yeah, okay, so they bought
Wan-Bissaka.
They bought a big knucklehead from Leicester. What's his name?
Harry Maguire.
That's it. God, he's got a head on him, that guy.
And then they brought in a young kid too from I can't remember his name. They brought in another young kid, but that's about it. And then they're trying to get stuff done, and everybody wants Paul Pogba for some reason, and. So
I don't know, man. I don't know. It smacks of Arsenal's transfer seasons in previous years where it's just like, oh, shit, we've just got to sign someone, make it look like we're doing something here. I don't know. You're right. I reckon it's probably 70% Steve Bruce.
Last year, I thought old Gunner was going to be the first person ever to be an interim, then made permanent, then extended, and then sacked all in the same year. He had to have come close.
I think you're right, mate. I have news across the pitch news desk, in and across the pitch exclusive. Steve Bruce has been sacked without playing a game. You owe me a couple of beers, you lads.
They found his card from the Happy Endings Massage Parlor in Birkenhead.
Birkenhead. How are you, lads? Haven't heard you guys there from the other side of the Mersey. Hope you're doing well.
All right. Well, did you guys have anything else tonight?
I think I'm done, hey. I think I've offended plenty of people tonight.
No, I'm good, man.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun, and I'm excited for the Premier League to get started this weekend, and we will be back with more across the pitch, more Championship, more League One, more League Two, and plenty more game previews, recaps, and I will be sitting down to talk with Darren Woodhead, so plenty coming up with Across the Pitch. Thank you all for joining us, and for my co-hosts, my brother from down under.
Well, I'm from State 48, Mr. Wizard over there.
Hey, you guys have a good one.
Good night.
Good night.